am Misty Thompson, and I'm going to tell you how I went from being a victim of child sexual abuse and rape to a survivor. When I was a small child, a close family member sexually assaulted me, molested me, and at times raped me when I was a child up until I was 12 years old. When I was 12, I didn't want it to happen anymore, and I brought up the subject. I told them trying to tell them, the adults, what was going on. And, of course, they called this individual, adults did, called this individual, and of course he didn't admit to it. He's 8 years old, he was 8 years older than me, and he told them that it was something, like, show and tell, I'll pull my shirt up or blah, 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 or whatever. But there was more to the story than that. It was never, I was never talked to about it, because after he said, no, nothing happened, it was just this and blah, 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 it was shut down and pushed under the rug. And he was still allowed to come around and visit. He did still come around to visit. And that made me feel terrible, because I was made to feel like it was my fault. Like, don't talk about it, because every time I did try to talk about it, I was shut down and silenced, this hush-hush, big, dark, deep, ugly secret. But, and over the years, I suffered from anxiety about this. I had nightmares and stuff like that. And then Georgia passed a law a few years ago saying if you were sexually abused as a child and you suffer from PTSD or mental issues because of this, you can reopen, you can have charges filed, and the statute of limitations on that only went back 20 years, and it's been 30-something years. So I did contact a lawyer, and I was talking to a lawyer about that, but I didn't meet the statute of limitations within that requirement. So statute of limitations on child sexual abuse, child rape, and stuff like that is like 7 to 10 years. But with this law, you could go back and file charges for what happened to you. But since it'd been so long, I wasn't able to have a case. So I did suffer from anxiety, all these years. And a few years ago, I actually had a mental breakdown because all this stuff was just coming to light. It was like a bomb, just rushing in. And I was like, enough is enough. So I gathered the family members from when I was way back when, and I was like, look, I sat them down. I'm like, this is what happened. And there was a few that still didn't want to believe it. And actually, I felt as if they turned their back on me and stabbed me in the back. And it's actually what they did. So, so I'm here to tell you my story. And because I can, when I was having this meeting with the family, I was like, well, let's call and confront him right here and now. And nobody wanted to do it. So I was actually able to get his cell phone number, summer of last year. And I called him and I confronted him and I asked him 2 questions. And I was like, why? He said because he couldn't control his teenage hormones. And I asked him, I said, well, how old was I when you first started sexually abusing me and raping me? And he says I was 6 years old. So he's 8 years older than me. If I was 6, he was like 14 or 15. And when I finally told, I was 12 and he was 20, 21. So I told him, I was like, I had to do a lot of soul searching and praying, and I forgave him, and I told him, I forgive you. And I actually had him on speakerphone, and I had 4 family members listening to it. And then when I told him that I had him on speakerphone, and these family members heard what he said, because I told him, I was like, while I had you on speakerphone, why don't you tell these people what you did to me all these years? And he says, no, because they can file charges on me and put me in jail. And then things got ugly, and he told me to never call this number again, that he was getting a lawyer. And the last thing I said to him was like, well, I already contacted a lawyer, and I'm coming for you. And I meant every word I said. I felt like white earth and tombstone. I'm coming, and hell is coming with me. And that's exactly what happened. I felt liberated. I went from a victim to a survivor at that moment. And all these years, that burden just fell off because I threw it back on him. I'm no longer carrying it. It's not my shame. It's not my guilt. It's not my sin. It's his. And he was never confronted about it. He never took responsibility, even to any actions. So when I was 12, what should have happened didn't happen. His ass should have been put in jail and charges filed and never to come around again. But it didn't, because nobody really wanted to know the terrible, ugly truth. So now I'm saying the terrible, ugly truth, because when I got off the phone with him a year ago, I was like, I'm going to tell my story. I'm going to put his picture out there. I'm going to tell everybody who it was. And I was advised by counsel, as well as family members, that he can take a case on me and sue me for defamation of character if he wanted to. And that was a possibility, so I stayed silent. So March of this year, I got a phone call from a family member saying that he passed away. All they told me was there was a lot of alcohol involved, and I put it together that, you know, he couldn't handle it. He couldn't handle the guilt, and he drank himself to death. So my monster is what I call him, and I was a victim of his. He was a child sex predator. He molested me and raped me at times, and the family member that did this to me was my grandmother's nephew on my mama's side of the family, and his name is Albert Sonny Lorenzo Grant Jr. And I actually have a picture of him I'm going to incorporate in this video. And everybody's asked me why now? Because I know I'm no longer going to stay silent and stay a victim. I'm going to get this monkey off my back. I didn't cause this chaos. He did, and he needed to take responsibility. And I confronted him. And this is my story and my narrative, because the narrative shouldn't have been this. The narrative should have been press charges, go to jail, face what you did, but he never did. So here it is, the ugly truth. It's come out. So I'm no longer going to stay silent or be silenced by anybody. That monkey was off my back, the chains are off me, and I've been set free. And this feeling of freedom and liberation and bringing attention to sexual abuse, child sexual abuse, needs to be put out there. It's an uncomfortable subject. Nobody wants to talk about it, especially if it's within the family and by someone that was trusted and liked and loved, and like, you can't believe that, and didn't want to believe it, so it's just shut down and swept under the rug. But no more. I put the burden to carry back on the people who should have taken it from me, and put it on him. So I'm setting the story straight, and all of this abuse for children, boys and girls, needs to be put out there. It needs to come to light. And if a child says something out of the way like that, you need to dive into it, dive deeper, and see what's actually going on. Okay? Thank you.